The old inn creaked around them, wind howled outside, rattling the windows. Meg, Jake, and Emily huddled by the cold fireplace. They were trapped. Exhaustion weighed heavily on them, not just from their long journey, but from fear.
There has to be another way. Jake ran a hand through his hair, his face etched with desperation. They had searched every corner of the inn, every dusty room, every cobwebbed closet. Nothing. They were out of options. Meg stared into the flames that refused to ignite. The image of the ritual site, the ancient altar stained crimson, flashed in her mind.
We can't give up. There has to be something we missed, some clue, some way out of this nightmare.
Hope flickered in Jake's eyes, faint but there. They had to keep searching. Emily pointed to a loose stone near the hearth.
What about that? Jake sprang up, energized by this new possibility. He knelt, examining the stone, his fingers tracing its rough edges. With a grunt, he managed to pry it loose. A small, dark cavity lay behind the stone. Inside, a tarnished silver locket gleamed faintly in the dim light. Jake carefully extracted it. The locket was cold to the touch, heavier than it looked. Inside the locket, a tiny, faded portrait of a young woman stared back at them. On the other side, barely visible, was an inscription, "The truth lies buried beneath." Buried? But where?
Suddenly, Emily gasped.
Here. One board was slightly out of place, different from the others. Working together, they managed to pry it loose, revealing a dark, gaping hole beneath. A wave of damp, cold air hit them, carrying the unmistakable scent of mildew and decay. A hidden passage. Hesitantly, Jake lowered himself into the hole, followed by Meg and Emily. The air grew colder, the darkness thicker as they descended. The passage was narrow, forcing them to move single file, their hands brushing against rough-hewn walls. The passage opened into a large, cavernous room. A single flickering oil lamp cast long, dancing shadows on the walls.
The basement was a shrine, or perhaps a prison. Ancient symbols etched into the stone walls pulsed with an eerie green light. A makeshift altar stood in the center of the room, covered in dried bloodstains and littered with strange artifacts. Chains, rusted with age, hung from the walls, their shackles large enough to hold a human.
This is where they performed the sacrifices. The inscription on the locket echoed in her mind. The truth lies buried beneath. Inside, they found stacks of old parchments, brittle with age. One parchment, written in a spidery script, detailed the story of a young woman wrongly accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake. The villagers, consumed by fear and superstition, had condemned an innocent woman, and now her spirit, unable to find peace, haunted this place, demanding retribution.
As Emily read the last words on the parchment, a cold wind swept through the basement, extinguishing the oil lamp and plunging them into darkness. A blood-curdling scream pierced the air, followed by an eerie silence.
Meg! Meg cried out, her voice trembling. She reached out, her hand grasping only empty air. Panic surged through her, cold and consuming. Suddenly, a faint, ethereal glow emanated from the center of the room. As Meg and Jake's eyes slowly adjusted, they saw Emily standing by the altar, bathed in an otherworldly light. But something was wrong. Her eyes, once warm and full of life, were now vacant, filled with a cold, malevolent light.
Emily! A voice, cold and hollow, echoed through the chamber, speaking through Emily's lips.
The possessed Emily advanced towards them, her movements jerky and unnatural. Her hands, twisted at an odd angle, reached for them, her fingers curled into claws.
This isn't you, Emily. Fight it. We're here for you. But her words were met with a cold, humorless laugh. The entity controlling Emily was strong, fueled by centuries of anger and pain. As the possessed Emily lunged, Jake instinctively pushed Meg aside, taking the full brunt of the attack. He cried out in pain as her nails raked across his face, drawing blood. The metallic scent of blood filled the air, a gruesome offering to the vengeful spirit. Meg watched in horror, tears streaming down her face. They had found the truth, but at what cost? They were no closer to escaping their fate. The prophecy loomed over them, a dark cloud threatening to consume them all. One of them had to be sacrificed.